What up guys, John from Linkswell here with another install video. Today we're installing our brand new application for your 13 to 18 RAM or your 19 Classic RAM. We went big. We've tried to find something in the middle ground. We got a 10-inch, I've had a 10-inch for a while. We went super big with that 15 XL. Well, guess what? We found ourselves right in the middle. We have done it. We've put a 12-inch for your 13 to 18 RAM, and that's what we're installing today. So what do you say we get at it? All right, guys, that's right. 12-inch in an older RAM, that 13 and a half. So if you have a 13 RAM, you may have the dash that looks like a 12. You may have one that looks like a 14. So you have to verify that it looks like this dash. If it doesn't look like this dash, it's not gonna work, sorry. But even if you've got that 19 Classic, same thing. You'll be able to do a 12-inch rather than a 10-inch in case you wanna do that. We'll make the screen stick out just a little bit more than the 10-inch. Won't look quite as OE, but folks asked for a bigger screen, so we went ahead and did it. That's what we're doing today, guys. So I'm gonna tell you real quick how we pull this apart. It's a pretty simple dash to remove, fairly simple radio to install. So let me just kind of give you a quick run through. This black piece here is what is actually being replaced. So the factory bezel here will remain. So it doesn't matter if you've got the factory 8-inch, whether you've got the factory 4-inch. It doesn't matter what factory screen you have in this, because we're just going to replace this black part here that's got the climate controls. You are going to want to pay attention to which climate controls you have, because that will tell you what we set the HVAC to at the end. But this dash comes apart differently depending on your interior. So I will try to recall exactly where every screw is, but I can't promise you because, well, there's a lot of variations, whether you have the center console, whether you don't have the center console, but for the most part, it's all gonna be the same. If you have a center console, you're gonna have to pull that out first. I don't, lucky me, I don't have a center console, but you have to pull that center console out. There'll be some screws holding, I believe, inside the cup holders. You'll pull those out. Actually, if you run back to my Generation 2 T-style install, I did one with a console, so you can figure out how to pull the console out there. I'll put the link right here. Cool, it's there. So you can hit that to find out how to pull the console apart. For this one, it's super easy. You may have some Torx in these pockets here on the left and right side. Some do, some don't. You will have two Torx up on top here, so you'll pull off the little rubber piece here. You'll pull out the little rubbers in the two pockets. We're gonna pull those Torx. It should be a T20. So we'll go ahead and pull those Torx out, and then the entire bezel is gonna snap out. Pull hard, but not too hard, because you may have missed a screw. So we're gonna pull these Torx out. Once we pull these Torx out, we'll get the radio out. The radio is gonna come out pretty much the same. What you'll notice is the difference that happens on the radios is really just the hole that is cut out in this black piece. So as far as the disassembly, it's gonna be the same. So let me go ahead and get these Torx out. Let me pull this dash off. We'll talk about pulling the radio out. We'll talk plugs, and I'm telling you guys, we'll be out of here in 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes, but close. Cool? All right, let's do it. And like I said, super fast, right? So there it is, it's out. So we're gonna unplug our climate control plug here. We're also gonna unplug, depending on what switch sets you have down at the bottom, whether you have the trailer brake or not the trailer brake, all the accessories underneath, we're gonna unplug that. And then you can see here, we should have 4 7mm holding the radio in. Again, doesn't matter if it's a 4-inch or an 8-inch, gonna be the same. So we're gonna pull those 4 out, unplug our radio, put that off to the side, and then we'll talk about how we are going to plug in our radio. So let me get this stuff unplugged, and we'll keep rocking. All right, so we've got everything unplugged. So let me real quick point out a few of the things so you know as we talk about ours. So obviously we've got our big fat monster power plug. This is where we're gonna get all of our CAN bus, all of our power, our speakers, all that good stuff's gonna come out of here. Depending on your equipped truck, you may have more than 2 antennas. You may only have 2, but you're gonna interface with the big one, guys. The one that looks like a cable that comes out of your wall for old school cable, for all my old school guys. That plug right there, that's gonna be your AM FM. If you plug into this yellow one is actually Sirius XM. So it will not work for AM FM. Now, if you are installing a Generation 5 and you're watching this video, you can use that factory antenna plugged into a V300 tuner. If you're installing Sirius XM, you will probably have to take apart the plastic. That's a whole nother video, but the yellow plug is pretty much universally known as Sirius XM, usually a white or black one. Usually the fatter one is going to be your AM FM. So that's going to be the antenna we use for the AM FM. But that's these plugs here. This is our climate control plugs. So if you have a Dodge Ram, let me say this, there are 3 versions of climate controls when it comes to what you have in your truck. So our truck here that we're working on is what we call a Ram Mid. It means it has 7 fan speeds, but it doesn't have auto and it doesn't have factory touchscreen controls. So that sets us up as mid. You may have a Ram Low. A Ram Low will have this white plug as well as a big fat plug with some power harnesses or from power wires for some blower motors. That's going to be a Ram Low. Now, if you have a Ram High, you're going to have just a small square plug, and I'll show you in just a moment our adapter for that you'll want to plug into that to make sure that those work. No, maybe if you didn't pay attention, if you have this one white long plug, you're a mid. If you have this white plug with a big fat plug, you're a low. If you have a small square plug, you're a high. That's how you know which climate control to set your HVAC to. But let's talk about real quick the harnesses, all of the plugs, what you're going to do for the install, and then we're going to talk about removing the factory bezel and installing our screen, and then we'll plug it in, turn it on, and we'll show you guys how cool it is. Sound like a plan? I like it. Cool. Sweet. So first plug I want to talk about right here is our main power plug. So you can see we've got the big box. So if I was to pull open the door, it should plug in and we can latch it in. Want to make sure that goes in there. Don't force it in case you bend a pin, but you do want to make sure that latches. But before you walk away from this plug, I do need to give you guys a bit of clarity here. So you're going to see 3 white plugs with speaker wires. So one is going to be tagged Dodge Ram high audio, and one will be Dodge Ram low audio. So the difference here, high audio is if you have an Alpine, a factory Alpine system. Now, the thing that Dodge does, and the reason we have these plugs is, in this main harness here, what Dodge does is for the Alpine system, the Alpine amplifier only has 2 signal inputs. It doesn't have 4. What that means now is fade is lost. I have a video talking about that, but because the Alpine amplifier only has a left and right input, it doesn't have a front and rear input, just left and right, you're gonna lose the ability to fade through the radio. So if you fade to the rear, you're gonna lose everything. The other thing Dodge does though, is when it goes to Alpine, they actually swap the pin locations. So where the front speaker pins are on a normal radio, they will be swapped to where the rear pins are for the Alpine. So what that means is if you were to have an Alpine system and you plugged into the low audio, what you're gonna do is you're gonna lose Bluetooth audio, you're gonna lose navigation audio, because those are all designed to play just in the front stage. And because you haven't put that plug in the right place, you're actually feeding your rear signals to the factory Alpine system and not the front. So any audio that's only proprietary to front speakers, you're gonna lose. So you're gonna wanna make sure you pay attention to that. If you have Alpine, you will see a little Alpine symbols on the speaker grills, and you're gonna wanna make sure you plug into high. Our truck does not have high, so I'm gonna go ahead and you can see we've got 1 male, 2 females. So I'm gonna take the one that says low, and we're just gonna plug these in together. Now, if you don't plug that in, guess what? You're not gonna have any audio, doesn't matter what system you have. So you're gonna wanna make sure you plug into that. And then let's talk real quick about all these RCAs that are hanging off of this as well. So you should have 2 yellow RCAs. These are gonna be your cameras. So let me just kind of preface this. Some Dodge Rams come with just the tailgate camera. Some come with a tailgate camera and a third brake light camera. Now, we pin both cameras for you. The problem is our radio only has 1 rear input. So you're gonna need some sort of switching device if you want to retain both. You're gonna need something that you can say, hey, I wanna see the tailgate camera or I wanna see the third brake light camera. You're gonna need something in between our reverse input and these 2 reverse signals. There's gonna have to be something in the middle of that. You can put the cargo on like the front input, but just know when you put it in reverse, you're not gonna be able to see it, because when you go into reverse, the radio always trump cards and will go straight to the reverse camera. So you'll need something that can trigger or flip that signal. We do have a multicam interface. You can check that on our website. I've done a few videos on that. So you could use ours. You could use something like a pack piece, like I think it's a VS41 that just kind of gives you different inputs where you'd have an external switch that you would switch between them. But these are gonna be your 2 camera signals. Again, if you want to use both, you'll need to put some kind of switcher in there. And then you're going to have two sets of red and white RCAs. One of them is going to be tagged audio input, and the other one is going to be tagged CD input. So what this is if you've got the Dodge Ram that has the factory media hub that has a 3.5 auxiliary input, you can use and you can retain that by plugging the audio into our gray aux in cord. That will retain the 3.5. Some Rams have a factory CD player in the center console or glove box, and we can retain that. And then in that one, rather than plugging the AV or the aux in RCAs into our gray plug, you'll plug in the CD ones. Again, if you want to keep both, you're going to have to create some kind of audio switcher in between. No, you can't just wire them together. Signals do not like to play to each other. They backfeed. It creates issues. You could end up blowing up the radio. You could end up blowing up your CD player. You could end up blowing up whatever device it is that you're trying to plug into the auxiliary. So don't wire them. You'll need a switcher if you're going to retain both. But we can retain that factory CD player, and we can retain your factory aux, one or the other, or you need a switcher. So that's going to be your RCAs there. And then you've got these two other plugs here. One of them is white, which is going to be for our CAN bus. That's going to be this red box here. You're going to want to make sure you plug this in. If you do not plug this in, you will have absolutely no power and interfacing when it comes to how the radio talks to the system. Now the CAN box will have two plugs. That's simply because some vehicle applications we make, our CAN box needs two inputs. On this Ram, you're only gonna have one plug, so don't worry about this open end. We have this black plug here, which is the multi-camera power. This is where you would plug in our multi-camera interface, like I mentioned just a minute ago. If you wanted to retain both cameras, there's a power plug here to plug into our multi-cam interface. And then we have this small black plug coming off of the CAN bus one. Now, as I mentioned, Dodge has got a lot of variations, and one variation is a vehicle that has like front sensors and rear sensors. For whatever reason, there is a section or a trim level that we have not been able to pinpoint what's the differing thing, that if you install a radio, you lose the audio side of your sensors. So what we've done is, rather than trying to find the coding and figure out why it's not sending it through the factory speakers, we just added a speaker. So within your kit should be an external speaker too. So if you have sensors, I almost would just tell you to install this just in case, so that you know you have sound for your front and rear sensors. So if you have front and rear sensors, I would install this just because I would do it just in case. So that there should have a matching plug on it, and it will plug into this plug here. Our truck doesn't have it, so I'm not going to worry about installing it. So that's going to be all of the stuff that interfaces there. We've got our factory USB, so you should see this mini USB here, and our red USB input will have an adapter for you. So let me go ahead and get that plugged in real fast here, and we'll just keep moving. So that's going to retain your factory USB hubs. Now, if this is a Generation 6 or an XL, we only offer wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto now, so it's not really that big of a deal. But if this is a Generation 5 or 4, just know that those factory USBs actually house a lot of electronics in it, and those electronics are what the factory radio uses to regulate voltage so that the handoff can happen between an iPhone or an Android phone. And all of those electronics are in ours as well. So if you try to use the factory port or the factory USBs to do CarPlay or Android Auto, it's not going to work. So just hear me say that. Unless you completely take apart the factory hub and you run the one USB that has the phone link tag, that's going to be your CarPlay one, and you can kind of mock this into the factory USB port. But that's going to be the only way you can do CarPlay with it looking into that factory plug. So just know we can retain the factory USBs, but because of the electronics in those factory USBs, you're only going to be able to do things like, you might be able to charge your phone, but again, the voltage may change and your phone may not like it. But you can do USB drives, hard drives, stuff like that. If you want to catalog movies and music and be able to access those from your radio, you can plug it into those factory USBs. I mentioned earlier about the AM FM, so why don't I go ahead and plug that in for us. That's going to plug in right there. And that's going to be all of our factory radio plug interfaces. Now, depending on which climate control you have, like I said, we're a mid. So this is actually going to plug directly into the back of our new screen. So let me give you the back of the screen real quick. So that's going to plug in right here. Now, if you had the RAM high, that meant you had just a square plug, and we have this cool adapter here, so it would look like the other end of this. So if you had one that had a square plug, you want to make sure you get this out of your kit. You're going to plug this into the factory one, and then the white side here will plug into the back of our screen right there. And then I mentioned if you had a low, you would have this plug and you would have a big plug, and you can see that there. So if you've got a RAM low, you're going to use this plug, and those are going to plug into the back of the screen after we've mounted the screen into the factory bezel. But let's talk about a few of the accessory plugs before I talk about mounting that. Before we talk about mounting the new screen into the dash. So let me grab those real quick. Sorry if I get in your way there. So we got our navigation antenna. I don't care if you're using navigation or even if you're just using CarPlay, you need to know you need to put this in somewhere because the tablet needs to be able to find itself so that it can run the proper apps. Now this antenna does not have to go on top of the dash, though it will work best on top of the dash. It can work under the dash. You just want to make sure that there's no metal between it and the sky. So for us, like, we'll probably put it right here on top of this air vent. There's a big flat spot back there. It's super dirty, but I'll clean it up, and we'll stick that up there on top of this air vent. So we have that antenna, and then we also have, let me find it real quick here. We've got our Wi-Fi antenna. So you'll have this nice flat screen, or this flat antenna right here. This guy here is your Wi-Fi, and you know that because it has a screw end on it. You should have, in a Generation 6 or an XL, you should have 3 antennas that look like this. One of them will have a screw tip, which is a Wi-Fi, and then 2 of them will have these purple, like, looks like the Sirius XM or the FM plug here. You'll have 2 of these. These are for 4G. That's right, guys. We have a SIM card option where you can add a SIM card into your radio and have internet all the time and not have to do a hotspot. So that's where these antennas are. Now, all 3 of these flat guy antennas, now they can do the same thing as your navigation antenna. They can go inside the dash. I'm gonna try and tell you to stay away from metal. Metal just does not do good things for reception. They will work better if you put them outside the dash. So if you wanted to run them up and put them up in the corners of windshields or up on top of the top panel here, whatever you wanted to do, if it's outside, you got to figure less things in the way, the better reception you'll get. Now, it will work under the plastic. Again, stay away from the metal. It'll work fine. You probably won't notice anything. But if you're in an area where maybe the service isn't great and you realize that maybe your Wi-Fi or your 4G is not working great, maybe pull those antennas and move them. And one more thing about the Wi-Fi antenna. Now, even if you plan on putting a SIM card and saying, I'm never going to use Wi-Fi, you have to install the Wi-Fi antenna. Why? Because CarPlay and Android Auto both use Wi-Fi to do its data transfer. So it connects via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So you have to make sure you put in this Wi-Fi antenna. Otherwise, your wireless CarPlay or wireless Android Auto is going to be incredibly spotty, if even it connects. So you want to make sure you install all 3 of these antennas. Even if you don't plan on putting in the SIM card right now, I'm just going to tell you, it is a legit game changer. So I would put those antennas in just in case later on down the road you wanted to put that SIM card in, that you had those antennas put in. Next thing is going to be our microphone. So we've got a new microphone coming out with our Generation 6 and XLs, and that is it just has a new bracket. So we've got 2 different options when it comes to mounting. We've got a double stick tape one here that you could even slide in. So I'm actually going to use this mount here, and I'm just going to slide this guy here in between the headliner and the A-pillar. Or we've got a clip piece too that you can use. So that's your microphone. Yes, you have to install the microphone. I'm sorry, we cannot retain the factory microphone. I've said it a lot of times. There's actually a really good reason for it. It just doesn't work. So just know that. Yes, you have to install our microphone. Even if it looks like there's a microphone on the face of the radio, there is not. The only microphones that work for our CarPlay, Android Auto, or Bluetooth is going to be that one that comes in the kit. So you'll want to make sure you install that. I did mention our auxiliary plug. So you've got this gray plug here. This is the one that you will plug into whether you want to retain your factory auxiliary or your factory CD. For us, this truck is actually a single cab, so it doesn't have either one, so I'm not going to be too concerned about it. For all of you audiophiles, our purple plug here is our Toslink file, Toslink plug, sorry. So if you have a Toslink that you're going to run to your DSP, we've got you right there. So that's your purple plug. You want to make sure you get that plugged in. And then we've got our USB 3. So this USB 3 could be for a variety of things. Maybe you install one of our USB DVRs where you put the DVR camera up here and then we control it and do all of the cool stuff inside the radio via the app. Yeah, this is a great USB to do that for. Sometimes guys will do some old emulator games and you want to plug in a video game remote into the radio and play some video games on it. This USB is great for that as well. Or maybe you are going to put in a 1 terabyte hard drive full of all your favorite movies and music. Again, boom, plug it into this guy right here, run it into the glove box wherever you want it to be, put it out of a pocket, you can come down here, it's going to be wherever you want it to go. This is literally just a USB 3 for you to add more sources. We've got our yellow plug, which is going to be all of our RCA outputs. So if you're adding amplifiers, we've got front, rear, and sub outputs if you have a Generation 6 or XL. We have a 4-volt constant RCA output, nice high power output. If you're running a Generation 4 or 5, we've got a 5-volt variable, which means at the maximum it's 5 volt. Average running is going to be right around 1.5, 2 volts, so just know that. But even if you're not running amplifiers, guys, the microphone plug is here. So you're going to have to make sure you plug in this yellow plug because that's where your microphone's going to plug in. And then we've got our camera input harness. So we've got this black plug, should have 3 RCAs coming off of it. They will be tagged for front camera, factory cam input, which will be your reverse camera, and then we have a right side camera, or you can program inside the settings to have a left side. So our radio comes ready to accept 3 cameras, a reverse, a front, and a side camera. And then the last 2 things for me to show you is a green plug, which is a DVR plug. This is really just an accessory output, not switched. So there's nothing inside the radio that's actually a switch output. This is just going to give you a constant, a ground, and an ignition for you to power like a camera or some device that you want to turn on with the radio. That's going to be that. We have a little SIM card adapter here. I don't want to pull it out of the bag just in case this customer needs it. But if you have a SIM card and it's already been chipped or poked out and it's the smaller one, we've got a little adapter here. I'll show you where this goes in a minute. I actually have a video talking about putting the SIM card in. I'll put the link up here as well for that. But this is going to go for your SIM card adapter. And then the last piece is going to be a little bit that we put on the screen. It's going to be a bracket that goes on top of the screen for the top 2 holes that go into the back of the bezel. So yeah, so that's all of our plugs, guys. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna real quick speed the video up. I'm gonna mount my antennas, I'm gonna get everything plugged, I'm gonna run my microphone, plug that all in, so all of my harnesses and everything are ready for me. And then once I've got all of the wires ran, I will go ahead and I will grab the dash and we'll talk about how to swap the bezel or swap the screen. And then we'll swap the screen, plug it in, turn it on, and we'll talk about programming the HVAC. So let me get all of this stuff all kind of plugged in real quick, and then we'll talk the dash bezel. Cool, let me do that real fast. Check it out. Okay guys, so here we go, we just flip this guy around, and now you should be able to kind of just follow along this insert here. You should see these screws. There's going to be 2 here on top. There's going to be a couple along the side, a couple around here at the bottom. What we're after is pulling off just this center piece. So you just want to pay attention as you come around. There's going to be 1, 2, looks like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 screws. I should probably count that better, but that's about where you're at. So pull out the screws that are obviously holding this guy in, and then what we'll do is we'll slide this guy out, and then ours will go right back into its place. I just noticed something, guys, real quick. SIM card. That right there, this black box that hangs off the back, this is where your SIM card goes. We talked about having internet inside. Again, a link to how to install the SIM card is on. We've got a YouTube video on that, so you can watch that. But cool. So let me grab some tools real quick. I didn't actually bring a screwdriver in here with me. I'm gonna go ahead and pull apart this factory bezel, get our screen into it. We're gonna plug it in, and it's gonna be glorious. Cool, let's do it. All right, guys, real quick, in your kit would have come this bracket here. So once you have mounted all of the screws here to get your radio into the dash there, you can see, you'll notice the top 2 screws is what this bracket's gonna go to. Now, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't necessarily need it. More screws is always more secure. So if you're one of those guys that doesn't want to do the extra work to get this bracket in there, I totally get it. I don't think you have a problem with it, but it will definitely cinch the top a little bit better. But the easiest way to do this is to pull out this pocket. So you should be able to see kind of some plastic clips that you can kind of push in so that you can get this pocket up and out of the way. Yeah, it's hard to do with one finger, bear with me here. So now that I got it out of the way, you'll be able to see how you can take this bracket and kind of lay it on top here. And there will be some supplied small screws for you to mount the small holes to our bezel, and then the factory 2 top screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount that, and then we'll plug it in. So give me just a second. Alrighty, so we've got everything screwed in and mounted, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna flip this guy around. I'm gonna plug everything in, get the dash bezels packed, snapped together. We'll go ahead and turn it on, and then we will talk about programming the HVAC, and then you will get to see the gloriousness that is a 12-inch screen in your Dodge Ram. Cool? Cool. So let me real quick say, I know getting this thing into that small hole, you might want to cut it. Now you can cut it, but it will go in without it. Just to let you know, might take a little finesse work, but you can get it to fit in there. Just wanted to say that before I finessed it, but let me keep finessing and then we'll go. Alright, so I got it finessed in. Go ahead and put the screws back in, put the pocket back in, get the screws in, and then we'll power it on real quick. We'll talk about program. And there you go, guys. That is a 12-inch screen in your 13 to 18 or 19 up classic Dodge Ram. As I mentioned, it's a little different than our 10-inch. Our 10-inch will sit in there flush, sits back a little bit lower, looks a little bit more OE, where this one's kind of sitting on top. It's the only way we could get a 12-inch screen in there, but you have it. There it is, powered on. Now the only next thing you got to do is tell the radio what kind of truck it's installed. So we're going to go into settings, and then it's going to go into settings. We'll hit system. From system, we'll hit settings guide, and then the top option, car model AC. We're gonna select that. You should see Dodge. Dodge Ram Mid is who we are. We're gonna hit Dodge Ram Mid. Other, because we aren't a 19 or up. Now let me say, even if it's a classic, guys, even if it's a classic, don't hit 19 or up. As far as a 19 up classic is concerned, you might as well be an 18. So it's always gonna be other. So if it's this application, if it's not a new body style Ram, always make sure you're on other, select other. It's gonna ask if you wanna set it. You'll hit okay. It's gonna reboot. All your climate controls are now going to work. Bada bing, bada boom. That's all there is to it. Your steering wheel controls, camera, all those activations should be good to go. But there it is. Y'all asked for a 12-inch screen and an older 13 to 18 Ram. We did it. Now available. We have 4 applications for the 13 to 18 Ram. We've got a 10-inch Generation 5. We have a 10-inch Generation 6. We have a 12-inch Generation 6. And we have a massive 15.6-inch Generation 6 T-Style XL for the 13 to 18 Ram. If you got more questions, hit us up. Hope that was helpful. Hope you enjoyed the video. We will see you guys next time.